So, the feminist pandemic, as far as I'm concerned, is so out of control. And actually a lot of what, like that whiteboard that I posted about on Facebook, it coincides with that. So this is kind of like a train of thought that I'm going on. So instead of men or, just people from both sides of the fucking genders, and I say genders meaning two, because I'm not even gonna go there, you are both to blame for feminism. And let me explain why. So there is the grandiose gap that is the delusion of the typical narcissistic personality person. Okay? So when somebody feels that like they have a shortcoming of some kind, they get what they call Napoleon syndrome, where Napoleon felt like he was so big because he was so short. Okay, so during the Victorian and the Edwardian, whatever, I always say that weird, Edwardian eras, so that would have been like, essentially when the United States specifically got going with its own culture, more or less. Women were coddled, sheltered, and protected like precious flowers. That was how society was. That would be how the sociological norms were instilled. It was the men who then got to court them, cater them, take them everywhere, make sure they're being babysat, watched, and that sort of thing. Somewhere down the line, men decided when the women felt they needed to project this sense of independence to feel like they're not caged, that they started getting bossy, ranty, and then started insinuating that they are more intelligent than their other half, their husband, or their male figures in their life, etc., etc. And then somewhere along the line, instead of, I'm not saying that it would have been to the point where it should have been abusive, but that's when the reasonable, sensible person would have stepped in, aka one of the men at that time, and said, "Hun, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but you don't really know how this works," specifically whatever she's ranting about. I was like, because it works like this, this, and this. Instead of confronting the situation and straightening it out and teaching her differently and having a dialogue about it, which we all know men are very awful at that, for the most part, they just humored her and kind of insinuated that she might be right. And that is where it all started from. If you feed into the narcissistic supply, or you feed into the delusion, meaning that you humor what the narcissist or the person that's developing neurosis or whatever is actually insinuating, they will start to believe it because nobody challenges their ideas. Okay? And then it snowballs way out of control. And now these sheltered women that have had this huge narcissistic grandiose ideation are now raising men and women by themselves as single mothers. And we today, into the millennium, are now witness to the repercussions of a chronic narcissistic culture. Actually, I've read a couple books on that. And that's where this stems from. So when somebody says